Now joined by Tosh Semlacher from Driveline Baseball. Tosh, thanks for coming on. Hope you're staying safe and healthy during this time.
Of course. Hope the same for you.
Thank you. And anyone who has paid attention to MLB's data and analytics-driven drive over these last decade has heard the name Driveline Baseball. I mean, it was started as a blog by Kyle Bodie with articles and pitching training and mechanics. It's really become a monster in the field with, Driveline trained coaches are hired by MLB teams, including Bodie himself now with the Reds. Mm-hmm. How has Driveline taken some cutting edge insights, analysis, development that the pros are using and make it work and digestible for the kinds of players that we have here at LakePoint Sports with Prep Baseball Report?
I think it's a lot of based on the people that have come in and kind of changed things going. There's been a lot of internal butting heads, a lot of things like they would say diamonds are built out of pressure kind of thing. It's a lot of different mindsets and a lot of people coming in with the same drive, but are pushing each other to kind of simplify and create the most consumable methods possible. And so whether that be in the pitching side, when we have Kyle who kind of set the base for everything, and then we've had other guys like Sam Breen and a few other guys that are currently here like Bill Heasel and Rob Hill and Eric Jagers. They all come in and they all have their different ideas or their kind of different passions. And then they're able to take those kind of high level concepts and high level thoughts and pursue them and then try and hone them down. And the same thing on the hitting side with Jason Ochart and a few of the others. They basically tried to do to go and take what most, even myself, would consider high level concepts and just whittle it down into a more consumable manner. And I would say that technology and the development of certain technologies has also made that very possible.
It has probably made it more willingness on people's end. It doesn't make it seem so scary when you're used to seeing things, kind of spelled out for you in an app. And I use a sleep app at night, to analyze sleep. And it's just all these little things that we're so used to that becoming part of our daily life, just to translate that into a sport that you're trying to get better at, understanding ways to get better at has to make it that much easier for people.
No, I'd say that's the biggest thing that we've been driving for, especially over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's actually, I think it's made us more or put us in a more opportune position, especially considering the situation we're in today. It's not a place that any of us would kind of expect to be in this place right now. We're all ready to be in our big brand new facility, and that all got kind of paused. But I believe that this kind of push for the utilization of technology and to use remote kind of software and being able to really not necessarily simplify complicated data or things that would be considered high level, but to make it more consumable through the usage of decision engines and just actually very high level stuff that I personally don't understand too greatly. It's one of those things using analysts, they're able to take a lot of this information and push it through our trainers to make it more consumable.
So you mentioned the kind of place we're all in collectively right now. I mean, high school, college seasons just stopped. MLB start date is in flux. A lot of players are kind of in this murky situation right now. They want to play again. They know they want to play again, but how do they get better right now and find opportunities and pathways to getting better? What has this period meant for Driveline Baseball in terms of a business standpoint, and how uniquely positioned were you guys to kind of be suited for what's going on right now?
Generally, just like everyone else, we had to pivot. I think we might have been a little more prepared to pivot in such a manner where we had already had the thought process of we need to empower athletes to be autonomous in their training. That's always what Driveline's done. Autonomy is king, whether you're an employee of Driveline or you're an athlete. And so it's the same thing for coaches. We're trying to give you all the different resources you can to do things on your own. And so over the last few months, we've actually been pushing further initiatives with integrations with our tracking software Track, which one, you can do alone on your own. There's a free subscription to that, where basically you're able to track all your data. You're able to use the plyo balls, which are meant to basically be used in inopportune situations where you don't have someone to have, say, play catch, or wrist weights where you're able to work on arm fitness alone. Or now we're doing separate integrations with, say, Pitch AI, where you're able to send just a camera video from your iPhone and be able to make integrations that way, or even say the utilization of pitch tracking technology like Rapsodo or TrackMan and even Blast, all these different things on the hitting side. And you're basically able to put that into, send that in, and it will have a decision engine that will send you analytics back. So there's a lot of ways that we're trying to empower people who would basically say that they don't have the capacity to add high-level analytics to their training on their own. It's something that they would have to look to experts or people who charge a lot of money for that. And now coming out soon is going to be the situation where that's not the truth, where basically anyone, where they are at home, as long as they have some form of access, and of course there's different levels of access to this tech, but we're trying to produce the most accessibility and consumability of this high level data to the masses. And that's something that we've been trying to push forward for the last 2 or 3 years. And finally technology caught up. Finally, we were able to put kind of forward the right foot in giving our analysts and a lot of our R&D members the time to focus on this. And I think it has put us in a proper position to help a lot of athletes. And additionally to that, a lot of remote training has been a focus of ours as well, where the utilization of technology, body weight workouts, our strength guys went, as soon as this kind of whole situation started to show a bit of what the passage might be, or at least it's going to shut down for a bit, our head of strength made our other strength trainers basically make all these different progressions of body weight workouts, thinking of basically everyone who has no resources and then different tiers from there. So it's been a very interesting situation. It's needed a lot of creativity. It's needed a lot of, I'd say, pure gumption from people just to figure out how we're going to help out as many people as possible. But I'd say Driveline, we're flexible. So I think that's been allowing us the ability to do what we've been doing right now.
So a new development was Driveline's partnership with Prep Baseball Report. If I'm a player who attends a PBR event featuring PBR technology partners, I get a player development snapshot. How do I take that information and tailor it towards educating myself to be a better player?
Ultimately, the key is just having more, I like to say puzzle pieces. So a lot of people, the game hasn't changed too much. The way that scouting occurs, it's been based off of anecdote, and the anecdote itself is very highly educated. A lot of these scouts, they understand what they're looking for. They understand what to see. Technology just adds a separate layer to that. So when these athletes go in, they're able to grab these certain kind of metrics and see why they're important. And then there are actual drills now, and there's actual abilities to pursue higher levels of that metric. So whether that be bat speed, whether that be velocity, spin rate, coming to understand the unique abilities of an athlete themselves enables them to understand what value to promote. And so I'd say that's the biggest thing. There is a roadmap of how to develop after the fact, after you get your snapshot. But the biggest thing is truly highlighting the things that make you unique and the things that maybe make you not so unique. So it's a true way of showcasing and diagnosing your abilities and kind of opening your eyes to what those mean. And I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Do you guys kind of hold them in different categories in terms of the performance indicators that you advise a player to focus on? I mean, certainly it can be, obviously a pitcher is going to have very different KPIs than a position player is going to have. But when you're looking to get them, into a road or a pathway to improvement, are there certain factors that you guys look at and say, we really want you to get improvement in these specific areas?
Absolutely. And I'd say it's very contingent on age, and it's very contingent on general level of ability. So say we're sitting there talking to a kid who he throws 82, he might be 17, and like everyone's gonna be, oh, you need to focus on your spin rate, things like that. Well, like, you want to be a Major League Baseball player. The truth is we need to get you throwing a little bit harder, because your spin won't matter too much unless if you're throwing a little bit harder. But the fact of the matter is that we understand that your spin rate is extremely high, or that you have a really strong pairing of spin axis and spin efficiency on two different pitches that make them very significant off of each other. You're able to make that player a much better player immediately. So I'd say there are different stress points for different metrics. I like to always focus on kind of spin rate for pitchers, and I like to focus on general bat speed for hitters. It's one of the true metrics that, say, if I'm looking at a hitter just on paper, which obviously doesn't tell the whole story, but when I see that he has a high amount of bat speed, it just is kind of like when you're sculpting a model. You have more clay, you're able to whittle it down. And so with more bat speed, you're able to make up for there's higher potential. And it's the same thing for spin rate. There allows for higher potential of movement, higher potential to make that pitch into something else. So there are different criteria for those metrics. There's different ways to utilize them. There's definitely more significance on certain things that way, but mostly it's contingent on age and situation.
I mentioned Kyle Bodie going over to the Reds now. He'll be reunited with a guy who's certainly been one of Driveline's most visible and unique talents there in Trevor Bauer. I remember hearing about the company, though, as far back from Braves reliever David Carpenter working with you guys. When did you guys notice, or was there a turning point when Driveline Baseball went from being this blog and this, kind of insider piece to being something that was really a brand name in the space?
I'd say that started changing in 2017, 2018. So in the 4-ish years that I've been here, it has been very interesting to see the change. But I would say a lot of it can be attributed to Trevor's success over those couple of years. It could be attributed to a few other major league athletes' success. Certain college programs had a lot of success. And I think it's greatly attributed to the market itself, where generally people want something different, and they feel that with the resources and the technology and the minds that are available to the world today, and just the accessibility through the internet, we should be able to do more. And I think that's one thing where we've been in the position to kind of push that initiative a little further, where not everything is not everything we agree with, not everything we disagree with. It's one of these things where we're all trying to push the stone a little bit forward. And it's the person who's in the door first tends to get a little bloody. And I think that that's where people have found us to be that person, where we've been in some positions that, we're butting heads with people, and that's fine. That's where growth comes from. And so I'd say the change came from a lot of success on certain athletes. It also came from just a general change in mindset for whether it be youth baseball to the highest levels of baseball. People just wanted something new, and we were kind of the first people, not necessarily the first people, but the ones who have started to integrate that and push it forward in the public space.
Most people have seen the videos of pitchers using the reflective sensors. I remember Braves prospect Tucker Davidson hitting 100.2 miles an hour with those on. How much has the Washington headquarters, as you guys have grown and become this brand name, how much has it become kind of a mecca for players looking to gain an edge?
Oh, it's incredible. My desk is right behind our biomechanics lab kind of mound, and so I've been able to see the types of guys that have come through I never thought I would see. When I first started coming here as a trainee trying to learn how to pitch from being a hitter, I always thought it was just going to be reserved for people kind of outcasts, or people who were just trying to learn whatever they could or push. Like, there's a lot of things just to learn about yourself when you're never the smartest person in the room when you're at this place. So it becomes this humbling, exciting experience where people are both overjoyed and kind of overwhelmed by what's going on. And the summer baseball this time that's coming up generally is it's a bit of a cluster where we got so many guys and they're all trying to do the same thing. But you really see how special this place is when we have, say, the pro off season, when you have guys that are all just, it's a place for learning. And it's this round table. I'd say the most significant thing that, as someone who might be considered a senior member at Driveline, I've been wanting to push forward. We used to have these roundtable discussions over just whatever terrible food we were eating at the time, where we just sit there and talk after training. And that was it. It was Trevor Bauer, Kyle Bodie, me, who's relatively a nobody in that situation, and a few other guys, just talking baseball, talking the future of baseball, talking technology and all these different things. And I think we've been able to take that culture and expand upon it. And that's what really drives these people They come here, they understand the tools, they understand that they're going to be pushed to grow. And that's what's pushed people at the highest levels of the game, like Kenley Jansen and Clayton Kershaw, to come to us. And it's pushed people from lower levels of the game that are just really just trying to be the best baseball players possible. And so it's a very cool situation to be in when those certain people are able to talk to others and just work with each other as baseball people rather than like major leaguers and Division II athletes. So
Who really blew you away when you were watching them working with the sensors?
Tucker Davidson. I mean, that I've seen enough people go in there and throw 85 and they sit 95 and they're just you're sitting there, you're in your underwear. You have all these little sensors around and you have 10 people watching you and you're in this mound. It seems they used to call it the velo dungeon because it just seems so far away. It's just kind of in the facility it would work that you're kind of like your ability to see where the mound was. It seems so far. And so it would just take away everything. And he just went in there and blew us all away. I'd never seen anything like that before. Like we've seen some guys come in, like Forrest Whitley threw really hard. A few other big guys threw really hard, but that was something else. But I'm not surprised. That's just how he is.
At the end of this whole thing with PBR is the ability to evaluate players completely different way, a way that's similar to the way MLB teams are evaluating players. How much, when you think about that relationship with PBR and Driveline Baseball, how much of that is going to be a game changer in terms of the athletes as they look to increase their profiles in both recruiting and scouting circles?
I think it gives power back to the athletes a bit. I think education and understanding is 100% the best resource that anyone can have right now. And it's something that I've been really racking my brain about lately is just the general value that this presents in player representation. Just whether that be at the highest levels of the game, so like agents and agencies, or whether that be players just trying to get recruited to schools. It really, I don't want to say it levels the playing field, but it takes things and it puts them back in their hands to be like, I actually understand why I'm valuable and I understand why I'd make this program better, or I'd understand why you need to pay me this certain amount of money. And I think the biggest thing is that in the past, it's been a few of us in the technology and kind of data-driven community that have been like, you don't understand the importance of data in this. And now people are starting to understand on the other side. Maybe it's because they've been burned a little bit by people from that end where like they made a little bit more money, or like someone else just sat there and like, hey, I understand my value a little bit more. Maybe like you should educate yourself. Like I know those situations have occurred, but I think it has generally shown its value and significance in the space. And the partnership itself with PBR and Driveline has become kind of the first conduit of really mixing those two, where showcasing and blending data have really kind of come to this happy marriage. And I think that's the biggest goal. And that's definitely the biggest goal of mine, is to find that in the same, like the most consumable way possible. How do we teach everyone what their value is and the significance of data moving forward?
We've gone a long way since Scott Boras used to put together his binders for a player that he was kind of moving as a free agent and saying, we got all this insight on you. Everybody's got that information now.
Oh yeah, and that's the one thing where I don't want to say there's been this competition growing between organizations and players, where it used to be just organizations and organizations going against each other. But it's true where if you go into a room and you don't understand your own unique metrics, or you don't understand your client's own unique metrics, you're already below and at odds with the people you're negotiating with. And business 101, you need to have all the resources that the person across from you has. And so that's the same thing in amateur baseball. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, you can find out more about Driveline Baseball at drivelinebaseball.com, or give them a follow on Twitter at DrivelineBB or Instagram at Driveline Baseball. Tosh, thank you so much for the time.
Of course. Great talking with you.